Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athlete trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this week's episode, we're going to be talking about probably the most forgotten big three of athletic performance and injury prevention, and that is sleep, workload, and nutrition.
I hope these aren't forgotten.
They shouldn't be, but I feel like when you talk to athletes or talk to other people, sometimes those things kind of get, workload's kind of getting more mainstream, but I feel like people often forget just the importance of nutrition and sleep sometimes. At least our athletes do.
I feel like the importance of sleep isn't forgotten. It's just the actual,
execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're a student athlete.
Yes. And not only do we get to talk about these big three, but we get to talk about with someone who I am personally so excited to bring on. I fangirled a little bit when I not only met Jatin Ambengaokar, but also when he said, "Oh yeah, I know about your podcast. I listen to your podcast." Wait, what?
That is pretty cool.
This is someone who I recognize his name because I have spent so much time reading his research, all through college, all through undergrad, through grad school, wanting to go into performing arts and just knowing that he has such a big impact in this performing arts community. So actually getting to meet him in person, converse. So I actually, going through this whole process, I also went back and saw some emails that we had exchanged way back when, again, I was fangirling again because he is just so cool. He is now a professor in the School of Kinesiology, College of Education, and Human Development at George Mason University. And then he's also a founding co-director of the Sports Medicine Assessment, Research, and Testing, which is a SMART laboratory. And he's the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Dance Medicine and Science.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
And I can go on and on about his bio. I'm going to let you listen to him. So is there anything else you needed in this intro? Okay, let's hear from Jatin.
All right. Kicking it off with our first cryo breaker. What element of athletic training represents you as a clinician? This could be a modality, rehab tool, tape, brace, etc. Basically any tool of the trade that represents you.
Sure. When we are treating, or as clinician treating athletic trainers, we always carry our fanny pack, right? Mm-hmm. It's got tape, it's got scissors, it's got wipes, it's got cold packs, it's got dozen essentials. People really joke about the fanny pack look, right? But really, when a performing artist or dancer rolls their knees, nobody's laughing, right? They're grateful to have what we need when we need it. And so that's really what I think represents me as a clinical practitioner, right? We don't just have one tool. Mm-hmm. We have a whole set of evidence-based interventions ready to go. Maybe today it's sleep talk, hygiene education for the exhausted core member. Tomorrow it's nutritional counseling for someone showing red symptoms, or workload modification and rehabilitation for a principal dealing with overuse, right? Just like the fanny pack, we have to be, and I think I would like to be prepared with multiple solutions because every performer's needs are different. And some might think the comprehensive approach is too much, but when you're dealing with the complex demands of performing arts, you meet a practitioner who's able to adapt. So I think the fanny pack, which isn't glamorous, but it works, right? And at the end of the day, when the dancers are healthy, performing well, avoiding injuries, they don't care how I look. They just care that I'm there for the need. I need to help them and keep them moving. So that I think helps explain what I think about myself as a fanny pack with different tools, and those tools keep changing, and we need to keep, as athletic trainers, advancing our clinical set when we practice.
That's awesome. So does that mean you're team fanny or team sling?
Ooh. Listen, fanny pack all the time, right? Go fanny pack. All the time to keep my shoulders open. I just can pack so much more in a fanny. And usually we are not running onto the field. I would love a sling back when we have more stuff we need to carry on the field, but that's not in this setting commonly done. It's a stage or something like that. But so fanny pack, go fanny pack.
See, I knew we were on the same side. I knew it.
There you go.
I love that. We always have something for everything. And it's like you always, and even if it's a little flexible. So, maybe you can't fit everything in your fanny pack, but you have something that can apply to different situations.
Absolutely.
So another thing we like to do on AT Corner is kicking it off with a story or some sort of experience that you've had that kind of ties this together of what we're kind of going to talk about. So whether that's sleep, workload, nutrition, something along those lines, if you could kick us off.
Sure. So, absolutely. So, I remember this case of a collegiate dancer who came to me completely frustrated. Like, she was nailing her combinations in the morning class, but falling apart during evening rehearsals. And
Mhm.
everybody at class kept telling her, try harder, focus more, right? But as an athletic trainer, we knew there was something else going on. So, something as simple as had her track three simple things for a week: how much she was sleeping, what she ate for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and her energy level at 6 p.m. Turns out she was sleeping well, but eating a tiny salad for lunch and then expecting her body to
Mm.
basically power her through 3 hours of intense rehearsal with basically no fuel in the evening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't change the entire diet, just asked her to add a substantial afternoon snack with proteins and some carbs. And within days, in the evenings, she was able to land her jumps and get her combinations. And the solution then was really what I would call, wasn't willpower, it wasn't technique corrections, it was really treating the root cause and
Mm-hmm.
addressing that issue of addressing her nutritional habits. And that's what athletic trainers, I think, bring to the performing arts. We can look at the whole person, we can use evidence-based assessments and find practical solutions that can really help. So sometimes the answer is not necessarily in the studio, it's how to prepare the body in order to succeed. So I think that's kind of an example where, like, okay, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, way to succeed, a way to solve problems, think about the person as a whole and help them.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that's why everybody and every body needs an athletic trainer.
There you go. I like it. I like it. I completely agree.
So something you mentioned was
Sure.
that that you looked into her sleep,
Hmm.
and even though her sleep was okay by the standards that you were looking at, could we talk a little bit about why that sleep component is so important?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, right. So we as clinicians, as humans, right, we need our 8 hours of sleep. One third of our lives is slept sleeping, hopefully, and that sleep is crucial for tissue repair, memory consolidation, hormonal regulation, host of different biophysiological factors. All are essential for performance. Athletes who really have to do this peak performance mentally, cognitively, and physically, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it is very crucial for dancers, performing artists, athletes to have good sleep quality and good sleep quantity, right? Because both of them can affect motor learning, can influence injury prevention, and the ability to execute what we like to call complex movement patterns with
Hmm.
precision. And in performing artists, also with aesthetic artistry, right? You need to be able to look pretty. I don't care how Steph Curry or LeBron James look while they dunk, right? They can dunk and
Yeah.
they can be all sweaty. I don't care. But when I see a dancer, I want him, her, or they will have to maintain that look that is visually pleasing. Also, whether it's similarly in aesthetic sports like gymnastics, you need to smile. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do all of that while you are performing, and so that's another thing that if you are not able to rest and recover, that mismatch between ability to process multiple inputs, right? Reaction time can go down, decision making can go down, proprioception can go down, and what could be essentially catastrophic for dancers who rely on that split second timing and spatial awareness. In addition, for long term, we know and research clearly suggests that increased injury rates exist in athletes. We don't know enough about dancers, and that's some of the work we are looking at. But it is known to decrease immune function factors, and again, both of those can, across a season, cumulatively lead to a risk for higher injuries.
For sure. So if you do have someone that you're like, oh yeah, we're seeing maybe the amount of sleep's not right or the quality of sleep's just poor, How do you work on someone to improve their sleep?
Sure. So starting first with recognizing that it is not a problem to fix,
Mm-hmm.
but it is something that can be improved, right? So
Hmm.
once you start framing it as like your dance will improve, your performance will improve, you're going to get more buy-ins right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I say sleep is performance medicine,
Oh.
For
right?
sure.
So quality sleep isn't really just resting. You need to sleep because your body repairs itself. You can consolidate new movement patterns in your brain when you're sleeping. You can learn better, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really talking about this concept of thinking as to picking that area of sleep, which is we don't want to tackle everything, right? We are when we are looking at talking to somebody, getting buy-in, and we know there is workload, we know there is nutrition, we know sleep is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one area. You sleep, nutrition, workload, whatever you are seeing, right? If you're seeing too many for example, workload injuries, overuse injuries, start with that. If you're seeing injuries or performance decrements in the evenings, think about nutrition.
Hmm.
If you're seeing in the morning there is fogginess, think about sleep. So it's not necessarily one or the other, it's a
Mm-hmm.
combination of where we are seeing the decrements or where we want the performance to start improving. Uh, and if you're finding that the athletes are consistently fatigued, maybe sleep is a place to start at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Irrespective of their nutrition status. So I think thinking about where we could be starting our entry into the pathway of disrupting maladaptive patterns is, I think, essential. Uh, and so it can be as simple as asking them to track their sleep. We can get more sophisticated as we talk later today about biosensors and how we can use those, right? So those are objective measures, but we also have subjective measures. And some of the research that we are finding is that objective measures like a watch or a Oura ring or one of those
Mm-hmm.
devices, fitness trackers, they are sometimes reliable but not always valid. Again, if I'm not
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
painting a very broad strokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and likewise, some of the sleep subjective measures can likewise be off, right? People can really not track themselves. Like, I don't know how much I slept. Maybe I slept 6 to 8 hours. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
slept 4 to 5. I don't know really how much I slept. I want to sound better. That's why I say add more hours, right? And that might
Right.
not always be the case. So it's really trying to think about what it is that you're seeing as an athletic trainer, the patient is looking like, the dancer is looking like, and then joining the pieces of the puzzle together to see what the clinical picture seems for that person based on what their goals are for their career, practice, rehearsal,
Mm-hmm.
whatever performance, however it is that they want. Did I answer the question or did I go off
No,
tangent?
No,
that was
yeah,
perfect.
that's great.
I was gonna say that was really interesting. I didn't think of thinking of the time of day that they're having like certain symptoms or certain complaints. That's kind of a nice hack to kind of think
Mm-hmm.
about, kind of guide your evaluation. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're thinking about, say, for example, you think about marching band and the
Mhm.
people marching band, they're gonna get up in the morning, so they probably have a good breakfast and good protein carb meal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're thinking like somebody we have, I was talking to some colleagues who work with the Madison Square Garden in the Rockettes. I mean, they're gonna go in the evenings. They have a 7 o'clock performance. That's when they 4 o'clock is when they need to eat their carbs and protein.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
you really need to be able to kind of think about how their positioning is in terms of both sleep, because sleep's also a factor, and
Yeah.
nutrition and the workload, right? So, yep, absolutely. Timing is important to think of for all of these.
So workload is kind of one of those keywords that you said in there. I feel like
Mhm.
sleep is pretty straightforward. Like you ask someone how long they've slept, they kind of have at least an idea of like what you were saying. Workload, it's kind of hard to measure. So how would you go about looking at how much workload someone has or kind of identifying that amount?
Sure, absolutely. Great question, right? And as practitioners, we are recognizing we're working with technology, the joy of technology and the bane of technology is we have more technology, right? Now, uh, So a workload essentially, right? Again, I'm making generalizations, and we understand that different genres,
Mm-hmm.
like different sports, have different needs, and so on and so forth, right? But for an example, we are looking at when we think about collegiate level or pre-professional dancers, we are looking at workloads about 20 to 24 hours that
Mm-hmm.
they have across the week. When we are looking at professionals, we are looking at 50 to 55 hours a week. And when we're talking about that workload, and the amount of time that I'm talking about is what we call working time, which what we mean with that is they're in that maximum to vigorous, moderate to vigorous physical activity zone, the MVPA zone, right? That's around that 65 to 85% of maximum heart rate. So that's where a lot of the work. So when we're talking about our heart rate, right, we have a 220 minus age seems to be our 100% max, and then go to near max work is
Mm-hmm.
95%. 65 to 85 is when you really can't even talk. You can sing a song when you're working out. 65 to 55 is like, yeah, when you can kind of talk, and below 55 you're just cruising, strolling, nothing's happening. So the
Mm-hmm.
MVPA is the part that we are really not worried is the wrong word. What we really need to consider, right? How much time is spent being in MVPA,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the workload that we are talking about. And generally, the answers will have 2 to 3, should have 2 to 3 hours of that as a pre-professional, and 5 to 6 hours of that as a professional. Anything
Mm-hmm.
more than that needs to be then calibrated
Mm-hmm.
based on what their demands are. So it can be as simple as asking them how hard that work is. The last 30 minutes, how hard were you working on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Or we can use sensors, and that will
Mm-hmm.
give us a measure of either direct heart rate or acceleration that those units will calculate physical activity, and you can get some of that. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the work that we have done and we've looked at, we have found in our dancers at the collegiate level also, they have about 7 to 7.5 hours of activity within that MVPA zone, which is a pretty substantial amount of activity, but they are sleeping less than 7 hours a day. And you're like, cumulatively now,
Mm.
that's a
Wow,
problem, right?
that
Because
is.
you're seeing the system, that you're going to start seeing the system kind of go down. So you're seeing October end coming up, and that's when the system starts going
Mm-hmm.
down, two
Mm-hmm.
months into the performance season, right? You're seeing March again being a problem month for performers, because again, 2 months down after the winter break. So it's really thinking about what workload means, and simply asking them to track is a good start than nothing else. But then if you have the ability to get some of these monitors, uh, some of them are really reliable. Like the Apple Watch is, for example, pretty decent. There is a device called Whoop, which seems to do pretty well. The Oura Ring, I like it, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't, as a researcher, I like it because it's easy. The issue is that it's a proprietary software. So as a scholar and researcher, I don't know what's in the black box, right? That gives me all of those numbers. So that's a challenge. But uh, it's something to have. Let me put it, it's just another tool, right? But it should not be and
Mm-hmm.
cannot be the end all and be all,
Mm-hmm.
and obsessively looking at fitness trackers. That's another end of the spectrum that we want to avoid our athletes and dancers to go
Right.
on to. So uh, just monitor themselves in the morning, mental fatigue, evening mental fatigue, how they feel is probably a good place to start with workload. And then if you have the ability, get some sensors on them and see how they are actually doing, where the sensors can make the unseen seen for us as practitioners.
For sure.
Something that I kind of say along those lines when we're using those fitness trackers is you can use it for more like trends rather than the actual specific numbers on it. Like, don't get too hung up on the numbers. Is that kind of like what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So we are really talking about looking at it over a series of multiple recordings over a general time frame, not at a specific time, because we are humans,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, motivation's going to go down, exercise levels are going to go up or down, life's going to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
that device is going to change how it records things. So you're really hopefully looking at the trends. Yes, you absolutely correctly identified,
Mhm.
not
Right.
one day, because one day just gives us a snapshot, and that might not be enough. That's again compounded by
Mm-hmm.
weekday and weekend, right? Because weekdays look different than weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're really looking at one day, you could pick a Tuesday, right? And you could pick a Sunday, and they look very different for some people, right? For some people,
Right.
one is a high
Right.
activity and one is a low activity day. So again, looking at one day, one time is not necessarily the way to do it. You're starting to hopefully look at trends and see how the system is responding,
Mhm.
both cognitively and physiologically, when you're putting your body through whatever it is that you are putting your body through. And yeah, don't get hung up. So that's another thing we tell, hopefully, people, that maintain your sleep hygiene, maintain consistent rhythms, optimize sleep environments that are cool, have pre-structured routines. But if you can't wake up, can't go to sleep, don't obsessively do clock watching. That is definitely not going to help you.
Mm.
Don't every
Yeah,
30 minutes look at your watch and say, oh my god, it's 3 a.m., oh my god, it's 4 a.m., right? That's sometimes counterproductive.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, kind of along the going on the opposite end of that spectrum, how do you get someone to buy in on kind of the importance of monitoring like sleep or using the trackers for like workload or being more cognizant of their nutrition? How do you get someone to kind of buy into putting in the effort for that?
Sure. So I think it's really talking to them, explaining them, and connecting the dots for them, right? So when you talk about injuries, for example, connect the dots. Say,
Mhm.
you know, we've seen that your hamstring starts tightening up, and I noticed that you're averaging 5 to 6 hours of sleep. Let's see if the next two
Mm.
days you want to pay special attention and try to improve your recovery sleep, and let's see if the recovery and the body is able to recover and help this issue resolve faster, right? So it's really trying to make it more personal for them, right? Maybe ask them to rate their energy level in the morning, afternoon. What did you eat in the hours before
Mm.
practice? How many hours did you sleep yesterday? Were you a good sore or was it a bad sore after your training, right? So making them more aware, like we all know, right? We all know sometimes the sore is not a bad sore and you work up,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not good. So
Mm-hmm.
getting them really aware, and the end goal for them, understanding what it is for them, I think as practitioners we know that's really really important, right? So you're really talking to them about these factors directly impacting their technique, directly impacting their injury risks and their ability to be chosen or selected for the performance, and their ability to learn
Mhm.
new techniques and new choreography. uh, if they start tracking and seeing the simple daily metrics connect with each other, and then we can provide 2 or 3 practical tips, it's really telling them that you need to give your body what it needs so that you can do what you love at the highest level, without the body actually being a factor that distracts from it but helps it, and you can then be at optimal performance. So that's the way I would position it. Your body is the instrument, take care of it and it'll take care of you.
Mm. It's about asking the right questions and making
Yeah.
them aware. Actually, I was just talking about this with a colleague about how sometimes, like, people are just not aware of
Mhm.
what is going on, and it's not like it's malicious that they're doing something. Like, it's just that they have no idea. So that's part of us as clinicians, is making them aware and educating them about some things that can help improve them, and then they can say challenge accepted. That's totally a performing artist and athlete
Mhm.
mindset. Oh, challenge! You gave me a challenge. Challenge accepted.
I love that, right? I love that because that's exactly what we need to do. And sometimes it's really, I think, as Randy you had said, pointing a spotlight for them on what they need,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes even they don't consciously,
Mm-hmm.
proactively verbalize it for themselves, right? They're just doing the do. And so maybe it's just a refocusing of saying, okay, what is it that you have wanted to do, and because of this performance decrement you're not able to do?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it that you want to be? I want to do blah, I want to be on 4 performances, I want to be the principal, I want to be on whatever it is, the first chair, fourth chair, third chair, right? However it is that they define the success for them,
Mhm.
and say, okay, so there is a component which is the skill part, which we don't, that's you and your teachers and your choreographers. But there is also the body part and the mind part where we as athletic trainers can play a very strong role in supporting them. And they have to, like we think about the medical care support team around the athletes, similarly we are part of the medical care team around these folks,
Mhm.
and helping them see that's what we are there for. And if they need to get to that next level, explaining to them, especially in dancers and performing artists, that background isn't there of anatomy, physiology, sports, healthcare, right? That's just not necessarily always taught.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, it's more about the art. And I remember this case of a dance teacher asking me, one time in saying that she was preparing a choreography piece, and she was like, how high can a dancer be when she jumps? So that piece had involved something of somebody being on a male dancer's shoulder and then jumping off of the dancer's shoulder and going
Oh,
down.
wow.
She's like, is this 20 centimeters? So I'm like, 20 is fine. Like, is 40 centimeters okay? I'm like, 40 is like, okay. Okay, is the shoulder okay? I'm like, how tall is your guy, right? So they don't even think about that in physiological, biomechanical risk terms. They think about it as performance. So just addressing the spotlight and say, okay, yes, there is an anatomical limit. I mean, you can do things, but let's talk through them and see what's achievable, right?
Right.
It's not saying no, what's achievable. And I think that's where we as athletic trainers can really, really support the performing arts and practitioners, because they don't have that background knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So kind of along those lines, kind of those stakeholders, how do you educate those stakeholders about like the importance of that sleep nutrition workload? Because we kind of talked about the performing artists, the athletes themselves, but now looking outside that picture, maybe the athlete or the performing artist is like, hey, I'm trying to like help my workload, but this is just so much.
Yeah.
It's beyond me.
Yeah. So I think looking at the stakeholders in the issue here, right? So looking at stakeholders like artistic directors and choreographers,
Mm-hmm.
looking if there's a minor, looking at parents, looking at the healthcare team, and the performer at the center of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you really want to start using what we call performance focused language, right? Not healthcare focused language, performance focused language, right? Explaining how, for example, recovery can enhance their creativity,
Mm.
right? As a choreographer, like, okay, if you want this combination, you want to add a little more oomph, the shower moments you have when you're kind of chilling down or we are thinking about something else, you need to provide time for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have technical error reduction. So wouldn't you like it if your group doesn't need 17 practices to get that combo? Maybe just need 4 practices,
Mm-hmm.
right? To get that combination. Wouldn't we all like that, right? And then in addition, extending career longevity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how long do you want this person to be, right? uh, for choreographers, then talking about performance rather than restrictions. So rather than saying don't do this because it's bad, don't overdo this, rather showing them that supporting these fundamentals really will enhance the quality and the consistency of their artists' work, right? uh, Showing teachers and directors that when their dancers are, for example, well rested and well fed, they can last longer, make fewer mistakes, and perform at their best for an extended period of time. Wouldn't you want that, right? Um, right? Smart load management is not a big word. It's really recognizing body
Mm-hmm.
mind connections, and you want to train when your body and mind are sound together. Because if either of those, and the spirit, obviously, right, that's also a part of the cognitive artistic process. It's about really doing good to the body and mind so you can get the output that you want. And you don't want to push hard when you're dealing with performance pressure or you're seeing your athlete go down. It can mess with a lot of things. I mean, we talked about reds briefly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
reds can cause periods issues with periods and menstruation, can lead to weaker bones,
Mm-hmm.
can be more prone to stress fractures or other injuries, can make them more prone to mental health issues, including but not limited to anxiety, depression, low mood, right? Do we want all of that? Not really. So how do we prevent that? Well, let's that now so that we don't see this degradation in your athlete's performance, in your dancer's performance. And it's not that hard. Like, we are not telling you to go to like a retreat for 3 months and do all of this good stuff. It's simple take home things that you can do at home. It's simple things that you can tweak in practice. And it's simple things like seeing me as an athletic trainer that can help us get there. Let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. No, I like that. I like that performance language. I feel like that's a good way of like framing it for the non-medical provider.
Well, then it
Yeah.
also isn't
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
from like an outside source.
Yeah.
It's coming from their same team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as athletic trainers, right? And as a society, there is enough knowledge available on social media, right? But again, your platform is in social media. You're doing it service to the population, right?
Mm.
Of athletic trainers. There is good information out there. Not all of the information is good, but good information
Mm-hmm.
does exist, right? As athletic trainers, likewise, we are hopefully reading position statements from the NATA,
Mm-hmm.
the CSM, attending webinars, reading and reviewing podcasts, starting with small CEU courses in an area that they're less comfortable with, and then build from there, right? So it's really recognizing that it's not a one-stop shop answer. It's more of a conversation and a continual long-term relationship with the overall idea of improving and enhancing their performance, their longevity, their skills,
Mm-hmm.
and their progress that we are going to, as athletic trainers, help them do better.
So you brought up about red S or reds, um, and there's definitely an interplay between workload nutrition with that. With someone that may have been diagnosed with red S, or maybe we're worried about, like, hey, they might be getting in that way. How do you kind of now intervene with like workload and nutrition to help kind of manage that?
Sure, great question. So I'll start with adding on. There is actually a dance specific Red S system being developed called Red D,
Oh.
right? So relative energy deficiency in dance, right? So it's
Interesting.
there, right? So there are so that's good, right? So that's good. As far as overarching Reds, right? It is a simple, and I say simple. It's actually it's a simple infographic, right, that shows us in a cyclical format all the different components of reds,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Dr. Nikki K, who's one of the world's leading experts in this area, she had a couple of good papers. Dr. Mountjoy had a couple of good papers earlier. The BJSM, British Journal of Sports Medicine, has published some good submissions about reds. And the general idea, and this is something that we have started to think about in our practice, is green zone, orange zone, red zone, right? So green zone is like, yeah, everything's okay. Orange zone is when you really are, what I think, Randy, you were talking
Mhm.
about, like when we have the orange zones. I think thinking about what is the issue, and so we bring out that chart and say, okay, we have identified out of these 10 different things around the circle, these are the three things we need to see because these seem to be issues. And then as an athletic trainer with the dancer or the performing artist or the athlete, say, okay, for this specific issue, who do we, how do we, when do we
Mm-hmm.
intervene, right? Can I intervene
Mhm.
in sleep as an athletic trainer with you? Absolutely. Well, but if you're showing stress issues and it's not going away, we need to see somebody. If your periods are starting to become irregular, we need to start seeing somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's a mental health and I see you kind of go down, we need to see somebody from a mental health perspective.
Mhm.
If we are seeing that you're excessively sore and you're not able to jump up, we need to work with a strength and conditioning coach, right? If we are seeing that you get many more boo-boos, then I'm here, right? I can fix that, right? So I think it's recognizing where the problem areas, because everybody's not going to show up with everything, right? They're going to show up with
Mhm.
hopefully, but everybody is going to start entering and going to show problem areas at two or three those places. And then again, as I said, the athletic training toolkit, bring out our athletic training toolkit, see where we can intervene and see where we can collaborate with other medical care team members to help that person. So I think that's what it is. When we talk about inflammation, we say out of the 5 cardinal signs of inflammation, if you have 3 or more, it's not a good thing. 2 or less, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Similarly, if it's 3 or less in this case, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more than that, we need to sit and have a conversation with the athlete, person, dancer, whoever it is, and then think about, we don't want this to become 4, 5, 6, 7, because that's not good.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So
Awesome. Are we ready to wrap it up with an action
I
item?
think it's time for some action.
Okay. So something that we love to do at the end is wrap it up, kind of put together something that someone can take away from this podcast. If they like a too long didn't read, just like a sum up, if there was one action thing that you can get out of this podcast, how can an athletic trainer start to implement workload, sleep, nutrition monitoring, guidance, something of the sort in their practice?
Okay, so great question. Let me think about it for like 2
Yeah,
seconds.
take your time.
Because there's so many things,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. So I would say start small, right? Pick one area. Don't tackle everything at once. Choose either sleep or nutrition or workload monitoring based on what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lot of overuse injuries that you're starting to see, start with workload. If your athletes are consistently fatigued in the morning and they're like, start with sleep tracking, right? If they're fading throughout the day, start with nutrition, right? And some of these questionnaires, some of these basic wellness things are free, easily available. Use simple fitness. Several, if not most people, will have some kind of fitness trackers with them. Ask them to bring it to them. So I think that's an area where I would start with. Pick one area that is important that you see in that person, and then go and do the research yourself as an athletic trainer. Look at these statements that are available, take a course, take a CEU credit in that specific area, and then get better so that you can advise your athletes better. And it doesn't really need to be super extensive. Simply ask, how many hours did you sleep? Tell me how you feel energy wise. What did you eat 3 hours before? Right? And asking two or three of these simple questions, picking one area, and then using simple tools for using that in your clinical practice are something that I would really request, suggest, strongly recommend athletic trainers we push into our clinical practice as something that can be take home points.
Awesome.
I like it.
I like it. Start small.
Yep.
Kind of like with the athletes.
I think a really cool takeaway from this interview was just seeing how supportive and the facilitatory role that we as athletic trainers have on the concept of sleep, workload, and nutrition. Right? It really shows how we kind of have our hands in kind of each pot, and we're able to kind of help get them to where they need to go, and be supportive when they are kind of referred out to someone else, and like how we can help support their goals.
And not only that, but it's really nice to hear about someone who's actually done it and been in the field and work with the not only the athletes but the stakeholders and the people who can change the workload, not only the people who are doing the workload. So it's nice to actually talk to someone who is not just in this like theory idea, but actually can have some concrete ideas of how they've changed it and how we can move forward and change it in our respective areas as well.
For sure. And plus it probably doesn't hurt that he's also Team Fanny.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So if you guys are new, we do a lot of different episode types here on AT Corner. We have interview episodes just like this one. We have story episodes where we bring stories in from real life athletic trainers and discuss a various topic, experience, share all of our experiences. And then we also have CUs on this podcast, and they're run mostly by Randy. So he reads a bunch of research articles and he kind of synthesizes them, puts them together, and we talk about them in a conversational format and bring them to you. For the newest ones are free, and then the ones before that are super affordable thanks to our partner Athletic Training Chat and Clinically Pressed. So make sure you go down the show notes. There's a lot of cool fun stuff down there. And if you have any questions or you want to reach out to us, or if you want to get connected with someone we've had on the podcast, just reach out. We have all of our contact information down below, or reach out on our Instagram at AT Corner Podcast. Do you have anything else, Randy?
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.